This is KLEAN Radio.
Welcome everybody out there listening to KLEAN Radio on our flagship station 790 KABC, or on the World Wide Web at KLEANradio.com. That's KLEAN with a K. You could actually live stream the show. We have an amazing guest in studio tonight. You can see how handsome he is if you live stream the show. It's a good tease. Is the amazing actor Tony Denison, but you could also hear us on Sirius XM channel XM channel 243. So if you go to channel 1 and go to the left, you could hear us, because XM channel 243.
That's all the Spanish soccer games.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you go to the left and you hear KLEAN Radio. It's a major accomplishment to be the last station on XM. So we'd like to welcome everybody out there. There's a show about addiction and recovery. And the life after. We're going to have a great show. We have an actor that's been working in the industry for, or as he likes to call it, the entertainment industry for the better part of 30 years. He's been in, from 1986 to now, top 10 shows all the way, which is absolutely amazing. But before we get to the actor Tony Denison, one of the first things I want to talk about is, and I was actually, Tony, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. They were talking about, a rehab in Florida, and I was like, great, that's, there's nothing better than sometimes going to Florida for rehab. You could retire right after you get out. And but I was saying, one of the things I love about KLEAN, and one of the things I love about where we are, we're in the middle of the city. And I was in 6 rehabs by the age of 22, and every time I would get out of rehab, the first thing, I was a fish out of water. It was like that scene from Shawshank Redemption when people, that line when they would say the walls would become your friends, and I didn't know how to live on the outside. And one of the things I love about being in a rehab in the middle of the city is, like, you're sort of integrating back into society as you're in rehab. And it really is an important thing. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it's just the thought I was having. And before that, let's just get to our guest tonight, the actor, the extraordinary actor. You might recognize him from 1986, top 10 hit, Crime Story, or ESPN's top 10 hit, Playmakers, or their only hit, and also on the #1 cable show of all time, The Closer, and now the #1 cable show, Major Crimes. It's premiering tomorrow night on TNT. Let's welcome to KLEAN Radio. Let's welcome back the great, amazing Tony Denison.
Hi, Judah. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction.
That's don't sound too excited.
No, I'm humbled by it. Thank you.
I actually want to leave that on your voicemail.
That I'm humbled by it?
Yeah. That would be a great job, by the way, being people's voicemail recordings. I would love that.
I think so. Or the GPS in a car.
Yeah, that's actually be pretty cool if you could sign up for that. Or adopting a highway, the Judah stretch. But
the Judah stretch of the 101.
But for everybody out there listening, the number here is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. We're a show about sobriety. Tony, you've been sober for a long, long time.
20 years.
20 years, and that's from, as you always like to say, from alcohol. Before that, it was
30 years on drugs.
From drugs. And but one of the topics I actually want to talk about tonight is staying sober through adversity. And I met you. It's funny because people, we talk a lot about, we're friends in the real world, and people always assume that actors have this goal. Once you land a job and you're on a TV show, you've made it. You never have to work again. You never have to worry about anything again.
Oh yeah, that's an urban myth.
Yeah, but you got paid so much money but you, when I met you, you had a rough year. That was probably one of the roughest years of your sobriety.
That year lasted about 6 years.
Yeah. And, you went through a divorce that year. You had lost your house.
Towards the tail end of it, yeah. I mean, everything. I was literally 30 days from bankruptcy.
And one of the reasons I want to talk about this tonight is I want to welcome your fans. You have some of the most amazing fans. Really through different generations, but they see you, and they don't get to see you always like I get to see you. And I want to tell people about the person I got to meet that first year. One of my favorite stories is that, you called me up and you said, hey, can you help me build this fence in my house? And anybody that knows me knows I'm not, I'm not the carpenter type. And so I go to your house and I'm wearing shorts, of course, and you literally wanted to build a fence. It was like
I had to move the fence.
You had to move a fence, and you didn't really even have to move it. You had to move it, but you wanted it to look perfect. because to you, this fence symbolized in some way, like, you know, everything's bad, but I'm still going to build. No matter how bad it is, I'm going to walk through this like a man. And no matter how bad life is, I'm not going to drink, and I'm going to build the fence the right way.
Right.
And that's when I got to meet you, and I got to meet you, and I got to see that message. And that was an amazing message, that you were at the worst part of your life, the worst point in some ways, in sobriety-wise.
Right.
And, you know, and you walked through it like...
I was 10 years sober at that point, and I think... I made some amazing discoveries, that my life, my happiness is connected to who I am, not what I am. And that if a person is able to really become comfortable within their own skin, I mean, nobody is 24/7, but for a good part of the day and a good part of the week, it's possible that there's results. Happiness can result from that when you're already in a state of learning how to be happy. But it's, you know, and I switched, you know, we talk about higher power in AA, in recovery. And prior to that, I didn't realize that my higher power was Santa Claus. You know, hey, I'm a good guy. I sponsor, 20 people, and I go to a lot of meetings. I answer phones. You know, how come this is happening to me?
Right.
And that's not what it's about. And so I had a very conditional experience with AA at that point, and then it had to become unconditional, and it was a challenge. It was really, because I had said to you, I remember I said to you, that one of the things that helped accelerate my sobriety is when I got to the point where before AA, there wasn't anything I would accept that I didn't first understand.
Right.
And then my life turned around and changed when I was willing to accept lots of stuff that I didn't understand, and just said, okay, fine, I don't get it, but all right, And you were willing to, you were willing to just do any job too. You were doing carpentry. I thought that I was going to have to give up being an actor. That's how bad bad off I was financially. And I thought, I don't get it, I can't think of anything else that brings me more joy as a vocation in life than to be an actor. But again, what happened was, without even realizing it, I suppose, is that the acting became the cause of my happiness and not the result of my happiness. I had forgotten that. Along the way, I had some I guess, walked this fine line and then crossed over to where, being an actor was, I'm not anything if I'm not an actor.
Right.
And I realized, no, that's not the case. And I think it was James Baldwin, the writer, had said one time that he'd rather be remembered as a good man who happened to be a good writer,
right,
than a good writer, So that's what it is for me.
And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this so much, staying sober through adversity, because we're in a time right now where people are, going through financial messes, life's, and you can start to give up hope. It's hard, because not just an actor, you could be a Wall Street broker that lost your job, but that was was who you are. That was,
yeah. It's very difficult, but again, it's you start looking at your perception of things. I say to people that the guy, living on the park bench thinks, okay, well, I'm here on a park bench, but it's a lot better than the guy sitting in a prison cell right now. And the guy in the prison cell is saying, I'm a lot better than the guy sitting somewhere in a hospital room. And the guy in the hospital room says, I'm a lot better than the guy who they're eulogizing this afternoon at the, so you try to the best of your ability to find a way to, I don't want to say be happy, because that sounds, is to just seek, an elevated thought, which we can do. That's what makes us great as a species, is that we have thought. All of life is about the passing on of ideas, and a lot of these ideas work. And
if you just tuned in, by the way, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. Give us a call at 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. We're in the studio tonight with the amazingly talented Tony Denison, Prism Award winner, and on the #1 cable show of all time. all time. I mean, I want to talk about, we're talking about staying sober through adversity, and you know, there are a lot of people out there that are going through adverse situations right now. But one of the things that's really cool is it got really bad in your career, and I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, but the certain role was written for you. I mean, you know, on that.
Yeah, and it didn't. I didn't get it.
You had a role that was specifically written for you,
right?
And you didn't get the role written for you.
I didn't get the role written for me, and I thought, okay,
by a friend.
Yeah. I said, I don't get this, but it turned out to be, again, you know, they say I don't want to be one of these bumper sticker kind of guys, but they say more will be revealed, and that there's a reason behind everything, and it's just my experience growing up putting a negative slant on everything.
Right.
You know, when it doesn't seem to be going my way, that if you let go and say, you know what, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be all right, and let me just focus on what I have to focus on right now, forget about, and that's what happened. I just, okay, I'll do the guest star, and then the guest star role turned into a reoccurring, and then in a really short period of time, less than a year, they said, no, you got to be a regular. And it turned out to be the best thing in the world, because I get an opportunity to do some wonderful stuff on the show, which I might not have gotten to do if I had played that other character.
And the other character is the amazing G.W. Bailey, and you guys play partners on the show. And if everybody, when you're younger, remembers him as, you know, from
Police Academy.
Police Academies, and it's really an amazing show. You know, The Closer was an amazing show. Major Crimes is an amazing show. But some of the best episodes have been you know, talking about your alcoholic character. You know,
alcoholic character, and the stuff that GW and I get to do, where we sort of go off the reservation slightly.
Right. And I mean, and that's, I mean, it's just such an, I mean, how was it? How is it playing an alcoholic on a show? I mean, obviously you're able to draw from your real life.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't.
Or a sober person on the show, I should say.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's funny. Somebody says, "Oh, well, the reason why you're able to do that is because you've experienced it." Well, as an actor, my job is to, you know, I've played
John Gotti.
I've played all kinds of people. I've never killed anybody, but I've played those kind of people in my life. So you know, you draw on certain things, certain emotional tissue. You know, you connect to it, and then you know, it happens. But yeah, is it simpler or easier to get to those places because I've been there? Yeah, you know, why not? You know, why not? If you can find a shorthand way to get to some emotional, you know, peak, why not?
Have you actually had people that have, you know, Facebooked you or tweeted you, you know, because your character is sober, you know, asking you about that? You wear the ring, which is the 12-step symbol, you know, and you've worn that for a long time. Have you had that happen? Have you?
Well, a few people have asked me out and said, "Let's go out and have a drink and talk about it." You know, no, I mean, no. People, I've had a couple of people contact me through Facebook to talk about it, and you know, and I say to them, "Listen, I can't." You know, I try through the message section, which is more private,
right?
You know, to have a conversation with them, and you know, I give them whatever advice that I was given, and say, here's my suggestion: try that, try that. And a couple of people has happened. There's one guy I know I was communicating with for a while, who, you know, he felt he needed to be sober. Ultimately, he didn't want to be sober. You know, because they say if this is a program for people who want what we have, not if it was for people who needed what we have, the meetings would be held in Dodger Stadium.
Right.
You know, there's so many alcoholics out there. And so if you want what we have, then there's certain things that we have to do, which, you know, it says in the first step, it's the adoption of attitudes and actions that no alcoholic who is still drinking can dream of taking. You know, and new attitudes and actions are just new ideas, new thoughts, new behavior, instead of the old ones, which got us in the rooms in the first place.
So if you just
that
tuned
makes
in,
any sense.
If it does make, but if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. We're in the studio tonight with the amazing actor Tony Denison. Give us a call at 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. And we're talking about, you know, in 1986, you landed the biggest show on NBC. I mean, you landed probably the biggest show. It was called Crime Story, and that was it.
Biggest role.
The biggest role. But I mean, it was, you know, Time Magazine voted you and Larry Hagman the best villain of the 1980s.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty cool, you know, guy to be up there with, is Larry Hagman.
Yeah, sure.
And what's the difference like then being in a hit show and now being in a hit show?
Well, it's I don't know. I don't know. Both feels
That
good.
never really is good for radio when you say you don't know. You could lie.
Okay, it feels great. It's you know, you do your work. You try to get stay out of the way of of results. And when things occur, if you have had fun doing what you were doing, and then you get this payoff, it's like, oh, that's great. But I had a friend who I've learned. I didn't know how to do this when I was doing Crime Story, though it didn't get out of hand. But I've learned since, it's like if you find a way to put your expectations in a certain way in your life. I mean, they have this saying around the rooms that expectations are resentments under construction. Well, I believe that expectations is just a 5-syllable word for dreams.
I've actually never heard that one, by the way. I've never heard that one.
What?
The expectations are
resentments under construction? Yeah. Well, but for me, expectation is a 5-syllable word for dreams. I have to dream. But if I could find a way to manage that dream so that maybe I lower my expectation just ever so slightly so that if it doesn't happen, my disappointment level is lower. And if it does happen, then it's like, oh, that's great. And if it happens greater than what I expected, oh, that's super too. But at least in the meantime, I was able to have some kind of balance in my life while I was expressing or feeling a dream.
So I want to get back, it's very interesting because there are a lot of people out there, especially that are drinking or parents or, that they see their alcoholic children or wives and they see that, one of my favorite from A Bronx Tale when they say there's nothing worse than wasted talent. Mm-hmm. And before you got Crime Story, you were running gambling, you were running gambling houses in New York.
Right.
And somebody said something very interesting to you. You said I'm an actor. Uh-huh. And they said,
No, you're not. You said, you're not making, it's like you're making too much money, doing this to really go out there and want to pursue acting the way it's supposed to be pursued. It's like, what is it, Joe DiMaggio once said, there's no rich kids in the farm teams in baseball.
Right.
And if they are, then they're not going to make it. And you have to have a certain amount of hunger, both, desire-wise and, viscerally.
And your addiction was really, that was really preventing you also from taking that next step.
Oh yeah, because I found the easiest way to import drugs from outside on the street into my head, and that the gambling club made that really easy to do, or easier, until that became unmanageable.
And then you stopped using cocaine.
I stopped using cocaine, and then I said, okay, fine. And then I went back to drinking. I'd stopped everything, and I said, okay, I'll go back to drinking. And, my life got back together. But the drinking, all it did was numb me when I needed to be numb because I was a crazy man. And I got my break. And then in the midst of, what somebody would say, wow, the ideal life, I am miserable beyond words. And so I knew something was horribly wrong. And I finally made the admission that, I called up a friend of mine, David, who I hope is listening because we were talking before, and he was very helpful, in saying let's go to the rooms. And I was afraid to go. I mean, I didn't say that at the time because I'd gone to rooms back when I stopped. And
you mean the 12-step rooms?
12-step rooms, and I did not want to go because I was afraid. and I didn't want to admit it.
What do you think that fear was? Because I know what the fear was. You often say, you didn't want to have to admit, my name is Tony and I suck at life.
Yeah, I suck at life, right. No, the thing is, look, I'm not addicted to drug or alcohol. I've said this before.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to fear. I use drugs and alcohol to treat the fear. That stopped working completely. The drugs stopped working first, and then ultimately the alcohol stopped working. So I had nowhere to go except to those rooms. Ultimately, that was but I was scared to death to admit that was the case. But fear, it's there all the live long day.
Right.
And the program helps me to manage it. I mean, like I was saying today at a meeting, it's like when I go to bed at night, maybe I do all the meditations and prayers and release a lot of stuff. And in the morning when I wake up, sitting on the foot of my bed is my fear going, hey, you know what you forgot? You forgot. I'm going to mess with your, and it's there just every day to just try to spoil the parade.
Let me ask you a question. Is it hard walking off set? We're in the studio tonight. If you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio, and our guest is the amazing actor Tony Denison. Is it hard walking off set? So you go on set, everything is made up for you. It's a perfect world.
Oh yeah.
It's like everything is there. and it's this perfection. And then you get, cut, you leave your trailer, and all of a sudden you're in the real world.
Well, okay. I still to this day have a tough time with people running to go get me coffee. They go, no, I'll get it. I go, no, because you got to go. All right, get me. I have a tough time with that. I've learned to find a way to make it be what it is. Sometimes when I have to go to the set and I would really like a cup of coffee, rather than be late to the set, okay, fine, that's your job. This is what you do, and then when they bring me my coffee or water or whatever it is, thank you very, very much. They've gotten to the point to know now that I like, dark chocolate. I don't eat milk chocolate. I think that's for little kids.
Yeah.
And
me.
And you.
Yeah, you've offended half of our audience right now that
dark
likes milk chocolate.
Is the only thing that sends me going. And so one of the ADs will have like a pouch filled with dark chocolate and then also peanuts. So that when I say, can I, and it's like right there, so they don't have to go anywhere because they know me by now. But that's, walking out into the real world, as you refer to it, that I don't have that transition at all, because I come from, my dad was a truck driver,
right?
My mom was a seamstress, so I come from a blue collar background. And I've said to people before, and I'll say it again, my values in life, except when I was whacked out, but when I got sober, I reacquainted myself with the values in my life, which are that I work in a gold collar profession with blue collar values, and so that I don't ever really take myself too seriously. There's some people who do, and there are some who don't. Fine, if that's the way, if that's what floats your boat every morning, ordering people around and being, an a-hole, fine, then that's what you do. But that's not what I'm going to do. And, I would see my life as a complete adjunct failure if that happened.
And we're about to go to break. We're in the studio with Tony Denison. One of the things I want to we're talking about staying sober through adversity.
Adjunct failure? I don't know. Anyway.
When you whisper next to the mic, you can still hear.
I think I mispronounced the word. Anyway.
No, I think it's abject failure. I think
abject
that's perfect.
failure. Yeah.
But one of the things I want to talk about, and I was sort of asking you this before, when you found out in 1986 the hit, and then you find out today. I want to find out, is the appreciation level different? And we'll get back to that when we get back. The number here is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. The discussion continues at KLEANRadio.com.
Are you or someone you care about addicted to drugs or alcohol? Addiction ruins lives and destroys families. Bring an end to the pain and suffering by calling KLEAN Treatment Centers. KLEAN has helped people from around the world break free by not only treating the addiction, but the underlying causes and providing vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean with no gimmicks and no false promises. If you need immediate assistance or just have questions, call KLEAN Treatment Centers for guidance. A much better life awaits. Addiction happens. Recovery and a new life starts here. Watch the worldwide live video stream and get immediate addiction assistance at KLEANRadio.com. That's clean with a K. Now back to Andrew Spanswick and Judah Friedman.
Minus the Andrew tonight. This is Judah from KLEAN Radio. Welcome back, everybody. And I just wanted, we're in the studio tonight with the amazing Tony Denison, but this is an amazing sober fact. That MAD gives these sober facts, and one of them, Tony, is only 8% of adults with an alcohol problem seek help for that problem. I mean, that's an amazing, and that's what we're talking about. 8%. That you take 300 million people. That's less than 30. That's less.
Well, I remember reading, or was it listening to? Anyway, the information that they were importing was that they believe, this is the alcohol, the National Council on Alcoholism, not AA, that they think that somewhere in the neighborhood of 15% of the adults over the age of 21 are alcoholics. Okay,
it's a lot of people.
So if you take, they didn't say just the U.S. I suppose they mean worldwide. Then that figure is probably way off, because I was an alcoholic out of the gate. So at 12 years old, I drank alcoholically. But even if you wanted to go on their notion that you're 21, if 15%, if you think of the fact that there's 6 billion people in the world, 15%, you know how many alcohol?
That's a hell of a lot of alcoholics.
There's like 700 million alcoholics out there.
And so only 8% of those people are getting help. And I think so much of it comes to what you were talking about is that fear. You know, is that fear of picking up the 500-pound phone and saying, I need help.
Yeah, nobody likes to admit that they're, you know, what is it that this guy, this Jesuit priest once said, Anthony DeMello, he said the three things that human beings have the most difficulty with is including the excluded, exchanging love for hate, and admitting that they're wrong. You know,
and I think that's so amazing. I want to hear people to hear what happened to you. It was 20 years ago. You sat down with a close friend at the time named David. I don't want to say his last name, but you know, a great guy. And you know, he was sober at the time, and he invited you to a meeting.
Right.
And you know, just tell the story. What happened?
Well, when I finally, you know, he said I didn't want to go. And he said the magic words to me. What are you afraid of? And I remember I turned to him and I go, I ain't afraid of anything. And he laughed and he goes, well, if you ain't afraid, then let's go. And I was scared to death because, like you had mentioned earlier, I thought I was going to have to go into a room and say, hi, my name is Tony and I suck at life. And that I'm not a real man. And little did I realize that I was going to enter into a place, because I had gone years ago but had vague recollection of what it was about. And I didn't know I was going to go into a place that was going to teach me how to be the best Tony I could possibly be, with the caveat is that I got to do it every day, and I have to give it away to, you know, to find the tools necessary to work on myself, thinking I'm working on other people, but really working on myself.
You actually fought it though, tooth and nail, not to go. You know, for 90 days, you had a challenge with this guy.
No, I didn't want to go. Yeah, no, I didn't want to go because I thought, you know, hey, you know, the machismo Sicilian, you know, from New York, I can do this on my own. I stopped the drugs on my own. I can. And I you know, came to the realization that I couldn't. I was taught. I've said this before. I'll say it again. That last night, me drinking, yelling, and screaming at the moon like a werewolf. Okay, the way I felt that night, I don't ever want to feel that way again if I can help it. And so I remember that last night like it happened 2 nights ago, and I don't want to feel that way again. So if not feeling that way again is doing the things that I'm doing, then I'll do them. Even when some days, even with 10, 20 years of sobriety, it doesn't make any sense. So, but I just do them because I know at the end of the day, I'm going to feel better because my experience has proven that to be the case.
So, I mean, it's sort of amazing because you've played these characters. Let's just say you were supervillain in Crime Story. You played John Gotti. You played Joey Buttafuoco. You know, you've played all these different, you know, machismo type of people. So people, the first thing they would assume.
I played John Gotti twice, by the way, under a different name in another movie.
But
really? Anyway, yeah.
So, but
called For Which He Stands.
You what?
The movie was called For Which He Stands.
And what was your name in the movie?
I forget the character's name now.
Oh, but
it was
anyways,
John Gotti.
But so you played all these machismo characters, so people would always assume, hey, he's a tough guy, or hey, you could, you know. And in the end of the day, you're sharing you're a scared little, you were a scared little kid.
Right.
And the reason I say that, want to bring that up, is because we have people out there that are listening that feel the same way. You get trapped into this role in life sometimes, you know, where the way people see you, or you know, you're the breadwinner in the family, and you don't know how to get out. And I think so many people are in that, you know, right now listening, that are in that position where they don't know how to say I need help, because there are so many of these expectations that society puts on them and that you put on yourself.
Right. It's hard. I mean, I wish I could say some, you know, magical words and have somebody sitting somewhere say, oh, that makes so much sense, let me go do it. You get here when you get here. I mean, I wish I'd gotten it completely 30 years ago, where I would be completely sober, you know, and have 30 years of sobriety as opposed to 20. But I'm happy for every bit of that 20. And but I wasn't ready. And, you know, and some people sadly don't make it, you know.
Well, obviously, by the statistics, most people don't make it.
Right. Yeah, the outcome for a lot of people who are alcoholics are that you're going to be either institutionalized, hospitalized, or eulogized.
Right.
And you know, I think that if you in your life, as you're busting through life, and if you realize, like I used to say about me, like I opened doors with my head, and then, you know, my head started really hurting a lot. And and I wound up in AA, and they introduced me to doorknobs, and life became a little simpler.
That's actually really funny. By the way, if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. We're in the studio tonight with Tony Denison, or Anthony John Denison, as I grew up knowing you, on one of the greatest shows ever made, which was Crime Story by Michael Mann, and which was one of the greatest openings. I can't talk enough. It was one of the greatest shows. I mean, when people always say, Tony, that was a show before its time, Crime Story was actually a show before its time.
Yeah, New York Times says it's the best television. It's the best television series you never saw.
Yeah, and that's the only thing by the New York Times I'll ever agree with. As I sit here in KABC studios, that's the only thing I'll agree with New York Times.
Well, they have that thing where they say all the news we deem fit. Sometimes it's really all the news, all the news that's fit to print. It's like I say, it's all the news we deem fit.
That's exactly right. So that's the only thing by the New York Times.
But that's what every newspaper's about.
Yeah, but that's the only thing by the New York Times I'll trust these days, is that it's the best show people haven't seen. But one of the I just wanted to tell, I often talk about this, is that, you have a lot of shows on TV, whether it's intervention, and you have all these different shows that, they claim to help people, whether it's hoarders, and in a sense, sometimes they do. But one of the things that's always bothered me about after you watch these shows is they don't always, it's like you're saying there's a problem, but you're not offering help after. And there are a lot of people that are listening to the show tonight that can't afford always to get help. They can't afford to go to rehab, don't have insurance, don't have money. And we've given away a lot of beds, and we try to give away a lot of beds, but we can't always do that. But one of the things we do offer is, if people are in need and they need outpatient help, that we will try to get them in for free and no cost at all, if we can do that. So if people are out there that are listening, it's absolutely free. Give us a call. We'll work with you. And it's important.
Yeah, I mean, you to the best of your ability, when you get to the point where the pain is too much, whatever you're able to do, you pick up a phone, you make a call to an Alcoholics Anonymous office. Hell, talking about the New York Times, even a newspaper. You call somebody, anywhere.
Right.
I mean, there's.
That's what I used to do when I was drinking. I'd actually call in radio stations.
Call
because I didn't want to be
stations.
alone, so I'd call up every sports talk show.
I mean, let's not forget, the Saturday Evening Post article written by Jack Anderson.
Alexander.
I thought it was Jack Anderson.
Alexander.
Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
Whatever. I mean, but again, that's through the print.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I joke about like the New York Times. For me, it's a great paper because it's the official paper of record, and I've learned a lot from them. But they're not the only source, and it's the same thing with Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is, as Bill even says, it's an important part of your life. It's a foundation, but it ain't the whole house. And there's a lot of things that you can learn by going to different places and being of service to people, either through recovery centers or, outreach programs or whatever you need to do to get the word out there to be of service. Sometimes people aren't built to be sponsors, but they are built to do some service work,
right?
Which might help a lot of people. I mean, that's just the way it is. Some people's lives just are built that way. But I know that for me, it's not just about going to AA meetings for me to stay sober. It's about trying to live a sober life. I mean, sobriety is a verb. It's not a noun.
I think that's so important to talk about because, people, we do hear this all the time, that people go, I'm going to have to go to these meetings the rest of my life. I'm going to have to do this the rest of my life. And, you might, but you're talking about integrating it into your life. That's not the only thing, that you go to meetings, but you live a life. It's a bridge back to life. It's not life.
Yeah. It's like somebody once said, if you live up on a mountaintop somewhere, you can be the holiest person in the world. I mean, you could be just so spiritual.
Right.
Up on a mountaintop, away from civilization, away from everything. Try to be that way living in the middle of a city. It's a lot more of a challenge. Yeah, you can stay sober and be in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and be totally safe, but the meeting's eventually going to end after an hour or an hour and a half, and you're going to have to go back out there. You can't go to meetings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some people in the beginning, maybe that's what they need, but at some point in time, you're going to have to go out and have a purposeful and useful life. And for the most part, that's going to happen outside the rooms. So the rooms being part of, what you bring with you, your tools and your bag, so to speak, what you learn in the rooms. But it ain't at all. It ain't all of it.
And so, by the way, if you just tuned in, you are listening to Clean Radio in the studio tonight with Anthony John Denison, or as some people call him, Tony Denison. I still think you should go back to Anthony John sometimes.
Well, maybe I will.
It's just a strong name.
Maybe I will.
Anthony John Denison, your girlfriend, the beautiful Melissa. We have two Melissas in the studio tonight, actually, and we have my next door neighbor and Penny and his girlfriend Allie. We have like a crew in the studio. We have like our groupies.
I have an audience.
It's pretty cool.
I feel like we're on stage here.
Yeah,
it's great.
And it's our new entourage. Yeah.
How much more time do we have? Oh my God, 20 minutes.
Is that too long or too short?
No, I just have to have a bowl of alphabet soup to figure out what else I'm going to say.
Why, you're done? That's
no.
the end.
I'm just teasing.
By the way, if you just tuned in, you are listening to Clean Radio, and people often ask. I mean, I just got stumbled for words, Tony. That almost never happens. But I have
that effect on you.
You do. You have that effect because you're a good-looking man. And I was actually going to offer a date with with somebody tonight, but I can't do that anymore because Melissa, just so you know, one of our first shows Tony was on. I think if it's not our first show, and I actually offered win a date with Tony Denison. And
did anybody ever win that?
They did win it, but you were dating somebody else at that point.
Oh,
and,
I see.
Yeah, the winner was Melissa. That's how you guys found each other. She was actually the award winner of that contest. But that's also something. So let's talk about that. But so if anybody's interested in talking to Tony, give us a call at 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. One of the things I love sometimes when we walk down the street, you have this crazy demographic of a fan base. You have one of the most eclectic fan bases I think I've ever.
I'm blessed that way.
It could be from different minorities, different ethnicities, because of all these different
ages. Yeah,
different ages because of all these different characters. And I mean, it's got to be cool. I mean, but being sober.
I love every single one of them too.
Right. So that's what I was asking you before. 1986, you get this hit, and it was probably you got a little bit crazy, probably.
No, actually, I didn't. The only thing that I did was I just took. Just like in AA, you have a plan for living. They talk about figuring out a way now you're going to live your life. Practice these principles in all your affairs. I didn't have that. I didn't know what to do. I thought the same plan for when you make it. I thought the plan for when you make it was different than the plan you have to make it. Turns out it's the same plan, even after you make it. So it's like AA, it's the same plan all the time. You don't get 20 years of sobriety and say, okay, I don't have to go to meetings anymore.
Right.
I don't have to do this anymore.
But don't you think what you just said might scare some people? Because we often hear people say that, they think the 12 steps, people could use it as a crutch. And I think that goes back to what you were saying a couple of minutes ago. It's like if you're just living in the rooms, because you do still go to meetings a lot.
Oh, of course I do.
But it's not your whole life.
It's not my whole life. I mean, meetings are a cool place to go to talk about what you've learned in the steps. But at the end of the day, when you read the other book, The 12 and 12, it's about the steps and it's about the traditions. And I think, Bill, I don't mean to be so presumptuous as to say I think I know what he was thinking, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's the steps. And there's times when you can't be at a meeting and you're going to have to summon upon something. And what you summon upon, for me, is something that I've learned from reading the steps, quoting them, one of the third step prayer, or doing spot check inventories. And sometimes you do those things and you can't do them at a meeting. You can't even get a hold of your sponsor because you're in the middle of work, And so the steps are, my tools. It's like I depend upon those steps the way a baseball player depends upon a bat and a glove and a ball. I mean, does it still make them less of an athlete? No, but they can excel at what the game they play with the equipment that they have.
Somebody just actually Facebooked me a question, and I want to ask you because you're sober, but you have no problem saying you're a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
No.
And
I know that there's a smudgy line.
It's a gray area.
Yeah, smudge.
And what made you decide to break your anonymity? Or is it you just where
it happened almost by accident, really. And when it did happen, I thought, you know what? I tell people on the shows that I'm on or whatever. I say, look, I'll tell you what. It's okay. People know that I'm in the program because if there's somebody there who's having a really tough time and they want it, and I make myself accessible to them, and they come to me and have a conversation, I might be able to be of service to them by leading them in a certain direction. I can't. That's happened twice. Since I've been sober. Maybe, people might say, "Oh, just twice," but just twice. Again, going back to what you were saying before about only 8%.
Right.
Of the people.
Right.
So, so for that alone, it's worth it. If people know that, oh, you used to be a knucklehead alcoholic and drug addict, and I go, yeah.
Right. It's like so funny. I mean, that's a great point you raised, because it's like when you were drinking and you were using, you ran gambling joints in New York. You weren't the most upstanding of characters that society had to offer. And then you get sober, and that's when you decide. It's a very odd thing that now I should be anonymous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't Bill's farewell address saying that if we're not careful, if we could be so damn anonymous that we cease to exist. Right,
and I think that's a great point. And 2 people actually is a lot, because you're right, because statistically what we just learned, that only 8% of people actually get help. 2 people, throughout that journey, but it's so many more. I mean, you were the ring on the show that, we're talking in the studio tonight with Tony Denison, star of the show, one of the stars of the show, Major Crimes, one of the best shows on TV, by the way. So if people love action, watch this show. I mean, action and drama. I hate, TNT's, we know drama, but it is such a fun show. And
James Duff, the executive producer, he was very gracious about it. I mean, he knows I'm sober. And one day we were talking, and I had my ring on, and I said to him, I said, you know what, James? I said, there's a lot of people who work for the municipal government jobs, cops, firemen, in the military, who are alcoholics. And it's not, I think it's something that we might be able to use down the road for some particular dramatic effect. I said, would you consider it? And he said, okay. And then he thought about it for, I don't know, about a day. He came back to me. He said, yeah, let's do it. I think that'd be great. So that's how come I was able to have my character be sober.
And it's amazing, by the way. James is an amazing guy and an amazing writer, but he wrote this show
pretty damn bright
about all these amazing characters in Los Angeles. And one of the things I love about Major Crimes is that you all of you guys get to show your talents. Mm-hmm. It's you and GW, who's the co-star in your show, he often says, what do you think? And when you and him are on screen together, I don't think there's anything on TV, and not that that's better than watching you and GW Bailey together. The connection that you guys, you would think you guys were actually best friends in real life, and the cool thing is you actually guys are very good friends in real life. Yeah. And you guys do both amazing charity work with the Sunshine.
He has the Sunshine Kids, which he's been the executive director of for over 30 years now. And since the closer, so now 8.5 years, 9 years, I've been able to, contribute time and money towards the Sunshine Kids.
Or as I call the Sunshine Boys.
The Sunshine. And I love doing it. It's wonderful.
Let's go to Amy in Kansas City. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, cool. Amy.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Good. How are you, Amy?
Very good, Amy.
Fantastic. Tony, it's great to hear you've been a fan for a long time.
Thank you.
I've been really enjoying the show tonight, and you guys have talked about so many great things, but I kind of wanted to just hear a little bit more about that anonymity piece and kind of breaking your anonymity and the importance of that. And I travel a lot. I work in the substance abuse industry as well, also being a recovering person, and I've found in so many situations not having that anonymity has just been a great resource for other people,
You mean breaking your anonymity?
Breaking my anonymity, yeah. I was telling the screener, I travel so much, and I just had a guy kind of find me in the airport because he overheard me talking to somebody else. And
that happens a lot, by the way, that, alcoholics in recovery are very loud. And, we talk really loud, and I've often had that happen also. We were in New York, Tony. Tony and I you weren't there at the time, but that same thing happened. Tony and I had put together a TV show, and the director of the show heard me talking, and he realized, oh, he's sober, and he has to go to a meeting with me. Mm-hmm. So you're right. I mean, so.
Yeah, I don't think. I know there are people, it's one of the traditions of, anonymity, personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, films, TV, and I guess the internet now. But I think that I've learned to say 12-step program. I'm in a 12-step program. I know sometimes I slip and go right to the fact that I'm in AA. But I mean, up until that I used to always make a point to say that I'm in a 12-step program. Nowhere in the literature does it say I can't do that.
Right.
But so, I'm an alcoholic. I make mistakes. So sometimes I say I'm in AA. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. I'm not happy about it when it happens. I hear myself say it, and I try to correct it as quickly as possible.
It could be Actors Anonymous in your case.
It could be Actors Anonymous, but that would be like I'm not doing a really good job at all of that because everybody knows me as an actor. But I do say 12-step program, and I think that that's okay. From what I understand from different people with much more time and much more experience than me, that a lot of people do that. But again, I hearken back to Bill's farewell address, Bill W.'s farewell address.
Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Who said that if we're not careful, that, we could become so anonymous that we cease to exist.
So 1 second. So we're on the phone with Amy from Kansas City. Amy, so you were in the airport, you're in the recovery field, and somebody overheard you talking, and then they were able to ask you for help?
Yeah, it was just a quick conversation, and for that gentleman, airports were a trigger for him. He was a business traveler, and he did a lot of drinking in airports. So I think it was just a nice connection for him to make. Not that he was struggling and headed to the bar
right.
or anything that dramatic, but I think it was just a nice connection to make. I had a flight maybe a year ago, and the flight attendant came over the speaker and said, "Are there any friends of Bill W. on the plane?"
And the whole plane got up?
And the entire plane got up, and no, but about 5 of us got up and went to the front, and another person was really struggling, So, and I think Tony's absolutely right. It can be. I think it's a very thin line. I think there's some importance in not having that anonymity and having the courage to talk about it and wanting to talk about it and making it okay and kind of breaking down that stigma a little bit. I think is extraordinarily important.
Look, there's some really super disgusting reporters and paparazzi kind of people out there that would, tabloid kind of reporters who would, pounce on somebody just because they can't think of anything else clever to write about, who happens to be sober and announces their sobriety or their somehow it comes out. And then they decide to hit on that. These are people who, wish that when they grow up they would really be writers. Instead, that these people who just hack at a typewriter and or keyboard and put these little black and white marks on a piece of paper and call it journalism.
And there's Tony's political view of the hour.
Well, I mean,
but you're right. It's.
I once had a guy complain to me because I changed my name.
That wasn't me.
No, I changed my name, and he wrote 3/4 of the article, the review, was about me changing my name. So I used to be a newspaper editor once a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So I wrote this fantastic response to him. It was fantastic. And I decided not to send it because I was just going to open up this can of worms and I didn't want to deal with it. I don't mind opening up a can of worms about how people, cover the stories regarding this girl like Lindsay Lohan, which is...
Or Amanda Bynes now.
Which is there's no anonymity regarding this poor girl's life. And these people, they'll just coddle her and front page her to death. And I hope to God that she's able to find some way into one of the rooms and stay. Because we almost lost a fantastic actor, Robert Downey Jr. There's no secrets about his exploits. This is a really wonderful actor. We almost lost this guy. If he.
Well, and I think there's a certain part too that it is my personal choice, and I should get to make my personal choice as to how public or how private I choose to be about my recovery.
Yes,
regardless
you're right about
of
that.
how I do that. Regardless of whether it's in the 12-step rooms or in many of the other options that there are. And I'm kind of a fan of almost everything because whatever helps somebody, I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but I think it is my
agree.
personal choice.
Okay, Amy, we got to run, but give us a call back next week, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Amy in Kansas City. Our first call from Kansas City. That's pretty cool. But we have a question online from Lou Moda. I can't pronounce his last name.
Italian.
Italian. Yeah, Moda. Patrick, he should have showed it to Tony. But it says, "What would you say that the second 6 months of sobriety is better than the first 6 months of sobriety?"
Well, I don't want to seem like too cute by half, but there's a guy, Wayne Dyer, who has this analogy about sobriety and the hands of a clock. And he said, at 12 o'clock, that's like the closest to whatever your higher power is, like spiritual enlightenment. He said, and then as we decide to like start drinking and using, and we start to click away from 12 o'clock. He said, when we reach 6, we hit our bottom, and then hopefully we get sober and we start clicking back. He said that first click towards, so basically 6:31 is greater than that first click away, even though it's 1 minute away from it, because we're walking towards some sort of enlightenment and help as opposed to walking away. So, by the second 6 months, when I had my first year, before I could rest on my laurels and say, hey, look at me, I realized I got to do this for the rest of my life. So I have to sort of pace myself out.
It is a great question, though, because, part of the question I also think that he's asking that a lot of people talk about, I'm not going to say what I think he's thinking, but is that first 6 months, a lot of people tend to always talk about that pink cloud, and then the second 6 months is probably more real, and for me, I relish the realness, because I felt.
I have this thing I want to say. I was telling you about. I heard in a meeting today. We're
running out of time.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. This guy Phil, he was sharing at a meeting, and he was talking about how his sponsor said, like, to sum up his life, he said, if he came up to 2 doors and one door said on the other side of the door is happiness, and the other side, and there's another door that said on the other side of his door is a lecture on happiness, he'd choose the lecture on happiness.
That's actually very funny, and that's alcoholism.
Yeah.
But I wanted to quickly, I want to thank you again, Tony. Your show premieres tomorrow.
And to all those tabloid reporters out there, I only meant half of what I said.
It's okay. There's hope for them too. There's recovery.
Yeah, they got to make a living, but sometimes
that would be an amazing anonymous group to start, like for former sleaze.
Yeah.
I know
they got to.
Paparazzo Anonymous.
Paparazzi Anonymous. Yeah, that would actually be a good group for them. And Tabloid Anonymous.
Yeah, or a TV show. We'll think about it.
They get sober and
we'll
they
have a meeting about it. But we have a minute to go. Tony, your show premieres tomorrow night on TNT.
Yes.
It's Major Crimes. You want to tell people what time?
9 o'clock on TNT. 9 o'clock LA time. It's a great pilot. I mean, a great first episode for the second year, and I'm sure you'll all enjoy it.
It's an amazing show, Major Crimes. I love it. I got to see it last year. I saw the pilot, with you and everybody out there, and I was able to say to the guy from TNT, "That's pretty good." Right. It was really good, and it's a great show. And nobody deserves to be on the #1 cable show on TV more than you do. I mean, I can honestly say that. And one of the things we're running out of time. And one of the top conversations that we had tonight about was anonymity. And I don't want to break their anonymity, but one of the people I was able to have in the studio tonight, the only reason I knew that she was in our world was because Narcotics Anonymous gives out these key tags. And I saw her key tag, and I was like, oh, And so sometimes it's really cool that one of the reasons we have the show and do the show is so people aren't scared anymore. And the discussion continues at KLEANradio.com. And we'll talk to you next week. Thank you, Tony Denison.
Thank you, Judah.
Are you or someone you care about addicted to drugs or alcohol? Addiction ruins lives and destroys families. Bring an end to the pain and suffering by calling KLEAN Treatment Centers. KLEAN has helped people from around the world break free by not only treating the addiction, but the underlying causes and providing vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean with no gimmicks and no false promises. If you need immediate assistance or just have questions, call KLEAN Treatment Centers for guidance. A much better life awaits.